Oh, these are wrong
Don't kill
answers.
the man.
Don't piss off the boss. Don't make golden cows. I mean, that's kind of right, though.
Yeah.
That's kind of right.
Kind of, yes.
Funny little
Yeah.
story. I mean, that was in the same time that the commandments were being created.
Definitely agree with the second one. It's a good one.
No other gods above thyself.
Yeah.
So
Do not
this
steal.
this page, by the way, you could get to. Notice the route that I used to get there. I'm on my class notes, and this is other items. Favorite commandments. I used to keep the statistics, but if you're still looking for the tablets, there's 2 of the 3. The third one was dropped and broke. That's a joke, actually. Familiar with Mel Brooks? Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks? Yeah.
Yeah. These 10 commandments. And that's in Hebrew, which is neat. So I kept track of what people were getting. But here's the thing: I'm not asking these what are the 10 commandments because I'm promoting the 10 commandments. What I'm talking about is how our memories work. If you do go over them, this is basically no strange gods, don't take my name in vain, right? No cursing. Keep holy the Sabbath. A lot of people forget that one. Honor mom and dad. Do not murder or do not kill. That's one of the ones that almost everyone remembers. Do not kill. Do not steal. Do not commit adultery. That was very well known during the President Clinton's administration. Do not bear false witness. And by the way, this is what's considered the Roman Catholic version, according to some folks. So there's different versions. Some that are popular but not correct are love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Those are Jesus's summaries of the law, right? So that's kind of so once you see them, oh yes, what does that mean? That means that they're in your mind, but you couldn't recall them at the moment you needed them. But once you got a stimulus that enabled you to connect the dots, yes, I remember that. So sort of like if I said I was wearing ruby slippers, which is not what she was actually using in the book. If I'm wearing ruby slippers and I click my heels together, what do I say?
There's no place like home.
For those of you that are familiar with The Wizard of Oz, right? And notice that your hard drive wasn't spinning or anything that was right there, right? How do we do that? Here's another example. How many of you are familiar with The Lion King? The movie, The Lion King? Yes? How did Mufasa die?
He fell off a cliff into a stampede.
You could picture the whole. You even hear the music, right?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right.
You know how.
I don't want to be so smart aleck, but yeah.
So basically, Mufasa died because he didn't move Fasa.
Oh my gosh.
Do I have to apologize for that one? Or is that all right?
3 out of 10.
Okay. But notice, you can remember it. It's a narrative. If I were to ask you the 10 Commandments, one doesn't trigger the next one. But, thinking the sequence of events in a narrative, it helps you remember the whole narrative, right? So narration is a real key to our memory ability. We also refer to ourselves as man the storyteller, Homo neurons, as opposed to Homo sapiens, right? Man the knower, right? We also think of ourselves as Homo neurons, the storyteller. And quite a lot of cultures do pass on knowledge through story. And in fact, what I'm going to be doing is giving you a particular story It's a long, involved historical story, but nonetheless, it's a story. And another thing that I'd like to point out here is that I believe that the best theory so far is the orchestrated. It's referred to as the OR theory. But basically, it assumes that we do have computers, our brains are quantum computers, not simply Turing type machines or linear type machines, as we assume these are. That's a good question. Are they really? You know, I wonder. But are we just like our laptops or Google's massive computers and so on? Or is there something else going on? I clearly believe that there is something else going on. And these two gentlemen, and this is Roger Penrose, who's, I believe, emeritus now, but he's a professor of mathematics at Oxford or Cambridge, I don't remember which. This is Stuart Hameroff, who's still very active. In fact, they just had a conference a few weeks ago in Santa Fe exactly on this, because this is an attempt to understand consciousness, clearly a philosophical issue for us. And if we're quantum computers, not only are we using the way that a network of interrelationships are going on, which, if you're keeping aware, Musk is trying to create a chip for people that need help communicating with their computers, so that if you have the chip installed, you could actually write with just the mind. Yes? Familiar with some of this stuff that's going on? But they argue that there's microtubules that connect the fibers in the brain, in the neurons, and those microtubules have particles that are quantum computers, or quantum particles rather, and they're non-local. So they're basically communicating non-locally. Non-locally means not just right here and now, but instead throughout all time and space at once, as long as there's some kind of interconnection. And it explains so many characteristics that we know about human thinking. Stuart Hameroff was an anesthesiologist, is an anesthesiologist, and spent thousands of operations putting people under and then bringing them back. And he always jokes that he's only paid for bringing them back, not putting them under. And sitting there with the person as they were coming back, he was able to hear them point out that they had seen something or felt like they were hovering over their operation and saw what was going on and what was going on in the next room, all kinds of things. Enough that he was absolutely convinced that our consciousness is really a cloud around us. And even though he's adding the anesthesia and putting the body to sleep, the soul isn't asleep. So there's some interesting stuff going on in this that I find fascinating. And along with this is the idea that every single experience you've ever had is still there in your brain. So that the real problem we have is not remembering, because we have it, it's recalling it at the moment that we need it for something. But you could trigger the response. You know, if I ask you, what's the first thing you did this morning? Probably remember that. What kind of birthday cake did you have on your last birthday? Probably remember that. I had a lemon cake. It's kind of interesting. That my daughter made for me. What did you do for your first birthday? Been harder to recall, for sure.
First one?
First one.
I'm pretty sure I know what happened on my first birthday.
You seen pictures and stuff?
No, but I was born. I'm pretty sure that's what was happening on my
Oh,
first
I
birthday.
was thinking year one, but yeah, okay. Yeah, I get it.
Probably drooling at the moment.
Yeah.
I had chocolate cake.
So I just throw this out there, that if you think about it, most of our contemporaries that talk about this, I don't know if any of you are psychology majors, but they think that during REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, that we forget a lot of things that are, like, oh, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't believe we have an erasing function in the brain. I think everything gets stuck in there, kind of like flypaper, and they're stuck there forever, right? Of course, we have efficiencies, the way the eyes work. We're not really seeing everything all the time. We have kind of like a hold pattern that says, oh, this will all be the same. Oh, this changed. Oh, this changed. That's kind of an efficient way that our eyes work and so on. But how do we remember things that we need at a moment, that we don't have time to do Google or something, to find it, right? Pretty interesting stuff. By the way, both of them are on my list for philosophers if you're interested in them. So please email me your commandments that you remembered. And you might even want to include comments about why you couldn't remember the ones that you now remember, by going over a list or something, or Googling it, right? By the way, anything you say is a pass for any of my quizzes, right? And then there's no word count minimum for quizzes. Hopefully you won't just say yes, no. ChatGPT had the question that it posted, are you male or female? And the answers were yes or no. Okay, that could be funny. You look very puzzled.
I don't think it's a yes or no question.
Exactly.
That's the joke.
And
I
ChatGPT didn't understand that. It doesn't know that it's playing chess. That's Big Blue. But all those different computer things, they don't self-reflect, and you do. You're thinking while you're sitting there, did I eat breakfast? Whatever you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself. So, and when did that happen? By the way, there's an interesting point that I should mention when we go back, and that's this was from the around 95, I think. That's the paperback edition. There's an earlier edition, of course, that when it first came out. Well, it's not telling us that. But the interesting point that Julian Jaynes made in this book, and it was, as far as I know, the only one that he wrote that became an important book, is that roughly around the end of the Bronze Age, the human mind, at least in some individuals, started being able to do what we've been talking about, thinking to itself and hearing itself thinking. Probably needed language in order to do that first, right? But at the same time, certain individuals are on record for saying that a voice spoke to them and told them what to do, or told them different things, right? And they were convinced that this was an invisible entity speaking to them, and that they ought to listen to that entity. This he refers to as the breakdown of the bicameral mind. Bicameral, two cameras, right? Two rooms, right? Two sides, right? Now, whether that's actually, it's just his hypothesis. So we can't go back to Moses and say, now this bush that you were talking to, what language did it use? We could pose those kinds of questions, I suppose. Today, if someone comes to us saying that a voice, spoke to me, we're going to get help for that person. You know? Things have changed. You know, we have a different theory to explain that, and we think that that individual needs help, right? But certainly at a certain point in time, those individuals were significant, and other people listened to them, and as a result, we get certain historical developments that are still impacting us today. And certainly